we have retirement homes, and we used to send out media releases when someone would turn 100 because the media loved to come and capture the photo. Now they don't come all that often because it's just more common. They're looking for 105, 112.
Prevention for me is staying healthy and learning, gaining wisdom and exercising, and also learning from my 80-year-old friends and my CARP friends.
Maintaining good savings, managing expenses is a very good way for seniors to enjoy a very long retirement without any of the financial stress.
Aging and thinking about what we want to do to promote aging well isn't something we want to think about when we're over 100 only.
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, the Zoomer with Libby Znaimer.
Hello and welcome to the Zoomer. It used to be a very rare thing, but now more and more people are reaching the great age of 100, and they're living more actively and independently. Comedian George Burns said it like this: if you live to be 100, you've got it made. Very few people die past that age. So, how to live to be 100? Probably you should stay away from those cigars he smoked. And there's a growing body of evidence on what you should do: eat healthy, exercise, socialize, and have a purpose in life. Today, we're going to drill down on those tips while this roundtable ponders whether longevity is a case of good genetics, improved lifestyle and medicine, or everything combined. But before we dive into the details, let's tee up the topic.
Every year, Queen Elizabeth sends congratulatory messages to her subjects celebrating their 100 and 105th birthdays in Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. In 1952, the first year of her reign, she sent just 255 such messages. By 2011, the number had jumped to over 10,000. In Canada, the amount of centenarians is now over 7,000 and rising. In fact, between 2006 and 2011, centenarian population growth was over 25%, the second highest rate after the 60 to 64-year-old group. And if you are a straight male, good news. There's 5 women for every one of you. One of those women in the year 2000 was Queen Elizabeth's own mother. The Queen Mom received a handwritten message from her daughter for reaching the milestone, while everyone else gets a printed card. A card in such demand that Britain's Department for Work and Pensions recently expanded their so-called birthday card team from 1 employee to 7. And there could be even more job openings in the near future.
All right. Joining us at the round table for a closer look at longevity are geriatricians and gerontologists, elder care advisors, financial experts, and of course, CARP. But first, let's hear from someone who is probably the best expert. Kitty Cohen is the poster child for living past the century mark. At 103, she leads a full, active life, fundraising for cancer causes, spending time with family, exercising, and playing her favorite game, Scrabble. She was just back from a month in Arizona when Darren Maharaj caught up with her.
On this edition of Zoomer News, we've made our way here to the terraces of Baycrest to chat with a super senior who at 103 years young still definitely puts the zip in Zoomer.
Oh, the sunny side of the street.
Hello, everyone. I am Kitty Cohen, and I'm not your average centenarian. This is what the cancer people gave me last year.
How many years did you do that walk?
Since 2008.
So you used to do 44 kilometers.
Yeah, in 2 days, yeah.
Hey, Kitty!
And that's when I became popular. Even getting to the Blue Jays to swing a ball.
Fans, let's hear it for Kitty Cohen.
Darren, get over here. We're going to play Scrabble.
Yes, ma'am, whatever you say.
He leads you to the water. One of the things that I can give you to take home, keep working on your muscles. You know, get up in the morning and stretch. Take your girlfriend dancing.
I got a problem with that. I'm not a very good dancer.
Take lessons. Step together. Step touch. Oh, there was an old hen who had a wooden leg, the best old hen who ever laid an egg. She could lay more eggs than any on the farm, and another little drink wouldn't do us any harm.
In Toronto, I'm Darren Maharaj for Zoomer News.
Obviously, Kitty is remarkable, amazing, and incredible. She is for sure one in a million, if not more. But what is it about her that keeps her so sharp? And will it ever be common to find someone in her shape at her age? What do you think?
I think it's becoming increasingly common, and I think it's really good news for all of us that people are living longer and living well.
But really, how many people have you seen like Kitty?
Well, one of them was my grandfather.
Oh.
He lived over 100, and like her, did a walkathon when he was in his 90s, was very active, always had a sense of purpose. I see lots of people like that.
What about you ladies?
Absolutely. My background is seniors housing, so I used to work in long-term care facilities. We had a senior that was 105 that went skating on the Rideau Canal. And I find it just fascinating. Looking at Kitty, she doesn't. Her mobility is still wonderful. She's still walking, no device, no walker or wheelchair, and she's still quite active. It's just fascinating.
Well, she says that the best way to keep going is to keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, the incredible opportunities that people are seizing upon to stay active, to stay social, and to push themselves to try new things. It's not that you've hit a certain milestone and you're done. You're just getting started for some people.
Like you look at her, and it doesn't seem like age is a barrier. She's got the Hello Kitty pen, and age isn't a thing for her. She's living life, and she's got a joie de vivre, and that's a common thing you see with people that are getting to become 100.
Elise, how important is that attitude that she's having fun?
100%. It's if you're not having fun, then what's the point of being here? But she's doing the right thing. She is exercising, she's socializing, she's dancing, she's playing Scrabble with Darren. It's if everyone could live that way, the projections are probably going to be right on. We're all going to be living to 100.
Yeah, she was supposed to play Scrabble with me, but I started to get worried that, she might beat me. I wouldn't like that very much.
And better yet, she might even point you out if you spelt the word wrong.
Yeah. There was a time, because I come from Chartwell, and we have retirement homes, and we used to send out media releases when someone would turn 100 because the media loved to come and capture the photo. Now they don't come all that often because it's just more common. They're looking for 105, 112. Those are the stories, and those stories exist.
I remember a couple of years ago going to a party at a retirement residence because they had 10 centenarians.
So I was at a home, and I have this great picture sitting on my desk, and there's 5 100-plus-year-old women and me in the middle. And I tell you, they looked 80. Yeah. They looked beautiful and young and still vibrant. And it's inspiring.
Okay, we'll be right back after a short break.
The newspaper woman called me up the other day. She says, Mr. Burns, is it true that you still go out with young girls? I says, true. She says, is it true that you smoke 15 and 20 cigars a day? I says, true. Is it true that you drink 3 and 4 martinis a day? I says, true. She said, what does your doctor say? I said, he's dead.
Welcome back to theZoomer. Life expectancy in Canada is close to 81 years and has been rising by 2 years per decade. People looking for the secrets to longevity point to healthy diets, plenty of exercise, strong social ties, and a positive attitude as conducive to long life. Others say it is just genetics. Fauja Singh, a.k.a. the Turban Tornado, is a 100-year-old who made it into the Guinness Book of World Records for being the first centenarian to complete a marathon. Take a look.
Ever think that you were too old to do something? Well, try telling that to 100-year-old Faja Singh, also known as the Turban Tornado. He plans to break a Guinness World Record here in Toronto by being the first centenarian to ever complete a marathon.
Faja's first marathon was at the age of 89. He went through a trauma, he lost 2 members of his family, and he wanted a new focus in life. This is going to be his 8th marathon. Many people have hobbies and other things, and this is his one, and it's good for him, good for others, because it helps through charities, that work that he does.
When it comes to records, this will be the 9th one he's broken this week. Just days earlier, the Tornado smashed 8 track records for men in his age group, from 100 meters to 5,000.
He says, it's up to God what he did. He didn't even realize he was breaking records. He was just following orders.
And what does he say to people that say they're too old to do something?
That's just a mindset that people have. The fact is, he doesn't believe he's old, so therefore the thought doesn't come into his head.
Well, Sharon has encountered hundreds of long-term care and nursing home residents, and you were saying it's more common to find people over 100, but how many of them could run a marathon?
Without doubt, that's exceptional. You know what I loved in Darren's report is when he said it's inspiring others. And that's what those examples are. They really make you think you can do it, you can achieve it. And if you're one of the people who aren't sort of at that age trying new things, maybe it's going to give you some inspiration.
Inspiration is good. Dr. Rochelle, nature or nurture? Is that just genetics?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, and I think it's kind of a bit of a million-dollar question. If we had the answer, I think we'd all be sort of, wanting to know what it's all about. But I think it's both. I mean, I think some people have good genes, and I think that's probably helpful. But think about all the things you can do. There's things that people are already doing, like we saw in our videos, like people being incredibly active. And when you're active, that's good for your muscles. That creates strengths. It's good for balance. It prevents problems like falls. Those are good things. Having a good diet, being lean, that's also good for you. So a bit of both.
What about extreme things? Like there's this theory about caloric restriction. People say that if you restrict your eating for years and years beforehand by 25% of your calories, it doesn't come to very much. These people are all really skinny and they cart around big Tupperwares full of vegetables everywhere because they can't eat regular food. Do you believe in any of that, Elise?
I do, actually. So in terms of, I was recently in Japan, and I had the opportunity to visit Okinawa, and that is, the UN has said that that's probably the population with the largest centenarian population. So I actually had the opportunity to visit Ogimi Village. And it's this small town, paved roads, modest homes, and there are just vegetable patches in front of everyone's home. And I know that the sea is just right across the street, and I'm pretty sure they were fishing and having a perfect diet like that. So I think there's an element, yes, if you're eating healthy, if you're eating clean, if you're eating less, then there's a good chance.
Yeah, that's eating healthy, eating clean, and probably eating a lot less than we do here in North America, but I mean extreme eating less. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if it's the extremes that you want to look at, and I think often when we're looking at what's good in medicine, it's about balance. So I think people should be lean. I think that's a good thing. That prevents problems that could arise, like conditions like diabetes and things like that, which is great. But I think it's about what you're eating as well. And I think one of the things you're perhaps talking about is the idea of unprocessed foods. You're eating the things that look kind of like the way they were grown. That is a good thing to do. And I think when you go to areas where people have lived long, it's often very simple kinds of lifestyles that they've led that have been really healthy.
Now, you're in a situation, have you found that people are demanding different things in their diets?
Do you know what's interesting is these are individuals who've prepared their own meals their whole lives, and they really like eating traditional foods, typically. So they're not looking for some of what is being offered in the community that sort of the middle generation's being exposed to. They really do want their traditional foods, their healthy foods, and it is a lot more of a fruit, lean meat, and some indulgences. I mean, you can tell someone you should have a small diabetes-size piece of cheesecake, but they're going to also want to do what they enjoy doing, and they kind of feel a little bit like they've reached the point they can reward themselves sometimes.
What do you mean by traditional foods?
Well, things they would have made for themselves and their families that they grew up with, as opposed to the processed or the convenience foods that maybe, recent generations are moving into.
Yeah,
Meat and potatoes.
Meat and potatoes? I was going to say it's interesting that there are now some facilities that cater to certain ethnic groups, and they'll have Indian food or Italian food. How important is that as people get older to eat what they're used to?
It's very important, very, very important. It also creates that community setting because their traditions are based around food, typically the family meal. You look at some of the communities, perhaps in Italy, and the family meal is very important. So to continue on with those traditions is something that many seniors housing communities.
Yeah, you know what it brings back? Food for all of us is memories. It really brings back memories of people, of how we enjoyed those meals in our life, celebrations, milestones. You can't underestimate how important food is in
and it's about
retirement living.
Socialization. I mean, I think that's one of the big pieces that food does, is it brings people together, and it's an opportunity to talk and to share, and I think that really helps with this whole longevity piece.
Stay right there. We'll be right back with more of the Zoomer.
You have to try to have good health. And you cannot have good health if you try to drink a lot of booze or you try to take drugs. You just make sure you get a good piece of bread and cook a cup of coffee.
Welcome back to the Zoomer. 5 centenarian women for every man that age. Yikes. According to Statistics Canada, the reason is that women experience lower probabilities of dying at all ages. Well, that may explain it to the actuaries, but I think people who have worked in long-term care and retirement communities may have a better handle on it. Christine, why do you think we often outlive men?
Oh God, that's a tough question because, as we know, everybody's living longer. Women of that demographic, at least today, I think, a lot of men may have had a higher stress rate job, or they've worked to a certain period, and then when they stop working, that sense of purpose isn't there, so there's more chronic illnesses. The reasons might vary immensely.
Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, actually, I think people would be interested to know that on the average age in our retirement side, which is much more independent living, is very close, about a year off. They're about 86 years old. And in our long-term care side, it's 87. So those are not different populations, but the nursing home staff obviously need more care, and residents need more care and have more acuities. But those are not different age groups. It's just, I think, a lot of genetics and how you've sort of lived your life, and maybe if you've had some chronic conditions.
You've done research on this.
Yeah, so we looked at everyone in the province of Ontario, because we have wonderful data in Ontario, and we're able to identify everyone who was over the age of 100. So we identified 2,000 people over the age of 100 at one point in time in Ontario, which is
in 2010.
Which is a lot. And what was interesting about that is they weren't just over 100. A lot of them were well over 100, so over 101, over 105, and some even, over 110.
Wow.
And interestingly, overall, 85% were women over the age of 100. But as you got into the higher age group, it was 90% plus that were women. So women are definitely overrepresented, or there's a lot of women in that older demographic.
And why?
So that's, again, a big question that we don't have the answer for, but lots of thoughts. One is that women tend to get what we call chronic conditions. So they're conditions that they kind of live with, things like arthritis and problems like that. Whereas they say that men get more what they call mortal conditions. So women live through their chronic conditions, and maybe men not so much.
And why is that?
Don't know why that is, but there's another kind of twist to it, that the men that are in that oldest age group are often even healthier.
Well, I have to say my interest in this is that the one person that I know who was most likely to live to 100 or beyond is my husband. And I don't think I'm going to be there to supervise him. And I know he makes jokes, well, he can stay fit by being chased around the nursing home. But yeah, I mean, the men, he shows all signs of becoming one of those men. Why is it then that they're healthier?
Well, it's also interesting when you go to parts of the world where they have these sort of blue zones where people have lived for very long periods of time. Sometimes in some of those areas, it's actually the men that will predominate in those unusual kinds of areas. So, they live.
Anybody have a theory on that?
From what I've heard and what I've read and studied and gathered is that women tend to be more social creatures, and when you have someone to call on and to sort of find that comfort, I think that might be some other reason why women might live a little bit longer. And they don't, I don't know how this will sound, but there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in asking for a friend to come over. We talked about yesterday, with groceries and comfort, et cetera. And I think it might be even a little bit more difficult for a gentleman to ask for help. And I think that social situations really do help.
Interesting you say that, because that's the generation where the woman took care of the man at home, like cooking and cleaning and so on. So, if the wife passes earlier, the man, his social...
Gets married very quickly.
He does. You're right.
Or decays fast.
But they are very, they almost disengage. Either get married or disengage.
Well, the other thing is that even in younger cohorts, the women often are kind of in charge of the social life, even if there's a more equal distribution of other things.
The social is so critical to actually enjoying life. I mean, the idea of living by yourself and in isolation, I mean, even if you make it to 100, what are you doing? You're not really living if you're just, living moment to moment, and that time is all spent by yourself. I think it's the social factor is somewhere behind women versus men, and that women who are very outgoing are probably part of that demographic that continue to live longer.
Yeah, you certainly want to be engaged, and I think it's true that women are much more likely to be in that caregiving role or doing those sort of social kinds of things. It really does characterize a lot in terms of the way women behave.
And the organizer and the planner and the reaching out person, those are strong life skills.
Okay, now let's check out the world's oldest yoga instructor. Ida Herbert first held the Guinness World Record for that at the age of 96. She didn't even begin practicing yoga until she was 50. Now a centenarian, Herbert, who lives near Orillia, Ontario, does poses every morning, although she just recently retired from teaching. Take a look.
Hip to the window, and now swing it forward. And watch that body coming down.
She's an inspiration to all of us. Some of us are in our 70s and 80s in this class. It inspires us to keep on going, just to keep our health.
In fact, Ida was recently voted by CARP, the Canadian Association for the 45 Plus, as one of the top 25 Canadians in the country.
Ida, how long have you been doing this for?
I didn't start doing yoga until I was 50 years old. It started with jogging and just ordinary exercises. And then one day I saw a lady in the class doing yoga, and I thought, that is my dream. Come up gradually. Slow movement strengthens the muscles. I had to take a course for the Y. I am not nationally qualified to teach yoga, but I'm qualified to teach for the Y. Press them firmly and feel the energy running down the arms right into the shoulders. The class seems to enjoy themselves so much. That's what I like about it. And they're serious enough during the class, but at the end of the class, there's so much laughter and so much fun and kibitzing going on.
A boyfriend?
No.
Are you dating?
No.
No?
I'm sorry.
Why not?
No. I can't find anybody my own age.
Ida is an inspiration to all our members, and especially to me personally. She visits the Y 3 times a week, facilitates 3 yoga classes.
Do you accredit yoga with looking so great and being so energetic at your age?
Yes, I do think it's yoga.
Are you also very careful with your diet too?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, mind you, if somebody offers me a donut, I take it. Up to the sky and a slight curve back.
And as we mentioned, Ida is now 100 and she is still very active. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more on the Zoomer.
I tell people to stay in the work job until they, as long as they can possibly work. I never retired till I was 99 years old.
Welcome back. Good health, as we know, is one of the basic elements required to achieve long life. Normal aging involves an ongoing physiological transformation, and living your best life will depend on a healthy brain. Studies show that the biggest concern for people is loss of mental ability, especially if we're going to live to 100 and beyond. Now, I've always heard that what's good for your heart is good for your brain in terms of staying sharp.
I think that makes sense. I mean, it's about being healthy, being active. All of those things are good for your body as well as for your brain.
Right. So I guess that means that exercise is good and you don't have to worry about doing Sudoku and crossword puzzles.
Well, I think it's about doing both kinds of exercise. I think physical activity, not extreme activity, but just being active on a regular basis, I think is really important. But it's also good to be mentally alert and mentally active. And so that's where the socialization comes in, and that's where reading comes in, and all of those sorts of things that keep you really engaged.
I just want to get a little more information on the research you've done on people over 100 in Ontario.
So that was just such an interesting project, but one of the things that came out of that was that of those people who are over 100, we were interested in where were they going for their health care. Interestingly, 95% of them were seeing family doctors, and only 5% were seeing geriatricians, so the specialists like me.
But there aren't enough geriatricians for them to see.
Well, maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe they couldn't get to see a geriatrician because there's only about 5 per 100,000 people, so there are not very many geriatricians. But it also speaks to perhaps, these people who are over 100 and perhaps have special needs. Like everyone who's aging, we need to think of how do we provide care and promote health and wellness. It probably means that we have to think about all of us being part of that process and not leaving it just to a few specialists, because we don't have enough of those specialists right now.
What have you found about providing care to the people who live in your facilities?
Well, so on health and wellness, that's such an important component. So there's care and support, which means if you're aging and you need some help, there's nothing wrong with asking for help, as you just said, and bringing in some of those support services. Those might keep you healthier longer. And then making sure, and retirement homes do this, they bring specialized programming. So we have a program called Live Now. So we make sure it's got a charitable aspect. So you're participating in the community and you feel engaged, or Fit Mind, so you're doing brain games and you're feeling energized, or chair yoga so that you're keeping your body healthy and strong. I think it's keeping the pieces moving all the time, because I don't think there's actually one answer, and I can't answer that as well as Dr. Rochon, but certainly it's participation and then making sure that health care is there when you need it.
I agree 100%. I mean, the programs that they're coming up with now in the retirement communities and the long-term care facilities are amazing.
They're very specialized.
I love the programs that develop a sense of purpose, like the charitable programs. There's more and more computerized programs, opportunities for learning. So they say, learn a new language, learn a new subject, learn how to play an instrument. All of those things will keep you bright and alert and engaged, and it'll keep your mind going.
We do a customer service survey every year, and we ask our residents, what would you like more of? And education is becoming one of the top areas they'd like us to provide. They want to do cultural exchanges.
Is part of the problem for a lot of people that they don't think about these things until there's a crisis, when in fact it could have headed off a crisis if you were doing these things regularly?
Well, I think it's just what people want to do. So everybody's got a different purpose in life, and so when people retire, before they retire, their purpose is typically working, and then they retire and they're saying, okay, what now? And they need to be presented with the options because they're not always in front of them, so they don't know what's out there. Like a lot of the universities have learning programs, but how to access them and how to get involved with them can be intimidating, can be confusing, or it's just not presented in a way that it's public knowledge. So navigating all of that is sometimes a challenge.
But it's also too about that whole idea that aging and thinking about what we want to do to promote aging well isn't something we want to think about when we're over 100 only. It's something that really affects us throughout our life. And I think we need to open up that conversation to what should we be doing when we're really young to help promote healthy aging.
What have you been hearing from CARP members?
I was just going to bring that up. So in terms of staving off cognitive issues, it's really just, volunteering for them and taking an active role, moving their brain, getting excited. We have Murray Etherington, who's out in Mississauga, who just put on the last 2 years job fairs. And that takes a ton of work, ton of brain power, organizing the people. There's tons of health and wellness events. So for them, it's really about being able to be a strong volunteer, advocate on the issues that CARP advocates on. Specifically, a huge one for us is the National Dementia Care Strategy and a plan, and they're all behind it. And for me, in a personal perspective, it's all about prevention. And my friends and I mean, most of my friends are 80 years old, but prevention for me is staying healthy and learning, gaining wisdom and exercising, and also learning from my 80-year-old friends and my CARP friends, and getting the sense that volunteering really is keeping them going. Every year we have 60 to 100 volunteers that travel across the country just to be here for 3 days in this very room. And it's an exhausting process, but for a lot of them, it keeps them going and motivated, and purpose, as you said, that's a huge, huge piece.
Anyway, we are about to take a quick break, and we will be right back with more of the Zoomer.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Oh, it's so nice to see you.
It's an honor.
You want to say hi to Michelle?
Yes.
Slow down now. I don't know what to wish. She's 106.
No, you are not. You are not.
Well, you slow down.
Oh my goodness. I want to be like you when I grow up.
She dancing? Come on.
Oh my goodness.
So what's the secret to still dancing at 106?
Huh?
Welcome back to the Zoomer. For many people, planning for retirement is focused mostly on finances, and their biggest fear is often that they will outlive their money. Joining us now is David Cook, a financial advisor who has helped many Zoomers live comfortably in later years. And now that we're living longer, how do you handle the prospect of saving enough to last for 25, 30, 35, even 40 years after you stop working?
It's a very good question, and the simple answer is you need to start early. You can't approach retirement within 6 months and decide where the money's going to come from. You need to start looking at it 10, 15 years prior. And the clients who seem to profit well in retirement are those who habitually save money every year and don't touch it for a very long period of time. The second thing that I find clients who live a very low-stress life financially is they manage expenses, especially expensive lifestyle habits, I'll call them. So maintaining good savings, managing expenses is a very good way for seniors to enjoy a very long retirement without any of the financial stress.
Mm-hmm, but presumably you want to live well in retirement. I mean, I know a lot of people who started saving at a young age, but again, if you don't have a pension, I find it hard to see how are you going to maintain more or less the same standard of living for such a very long time. And then there's also a question, Canadians think, the government will take care of any health issue, but if you have a bad problem, you can spend thousands of dollars on extra care that you need too.
For sure. And so my advice to people is in terms of when they retire and how they retire is to really map out sort of good, better, best case scenarios and really get creative, look at strategies, maybe instruments that may help you. If you don't have a pension, for an example, insurance companies will provide you with a private pension if you want to buy into one. You may look at an annuity. You need to understand how government programs work, whether they're income tested, and also how those things are going to be taxed. The other thing that I look at often is be creative and flexible in terms of when you retire. Maybe ideally you want to retire at age 58. Well, maybe test to see, the benefits of working until 60 or 62, or maybe working part-time. Anything that doesn't draw away from your retirement nest egg.
Well, I think there have been studies, and most people don't expect certainly to retire before 65, and most people are thinking they're going to have to work past that.
The question is going to be how you work. Is it the 9-to-5 grind and commute that you've had the previous 30 years? Maybe it's going to something part-time, or maybe it's working part-time and renting space to a tenant in your house. So I think you can actually have some fun, stay engaged, looking at your storyboards. I mean, your one centenarian was volunteering at the YMCA. The other one is taking up running. I mean, these are modest lifestyle activities, and while they're doing those, they're not out spending money on lavish shoe shopping, as it were.
But so you're saying shoe shopping has to go? Is that it?
I would never come to a table of 5 women and suggest that shoe shopping needs to stop, but you do have to be a bit creative, a bit strategic, and in the same way that you spoke earlier about basic diet and exercise, maybe we need to look at basics in terms of spending and lifestyle.
Okay, so tell us the kinds of things that we maybe have to cut out of our spending diet to make that money last.
I'm not one to tell people how to spend their money. I think, though, the adage of living within your means, I think the understanding that there may be expenses and things down the road that you have to factor for may help you manage that spending. Working with a good advisor to determine on a yearly basis what your spending could look like in a sustainable way. This is not the days gone by where it was kind of a set it and forget it financial plan. There's too many moving parts. It's too long a period of time. I find a lot of seniors enjoy the idea or take comfort from the idea of leaving a legacy to their family, leaving an inheritance. And I think a family conversation early on that says, this is money that I'd like to leave for you, but in the event I live a long life and I need the help and care, know that it's going to go to my help and care. And so having the family involved early on, having the plan, looking at the options well ahead of time before the time of a crisis, and then everyone's on board.
You just both spoke to something, though. It's that conversation. And, parents don't want to disclose information to their children, so they really resist that sharing, even on decision-making about care and how it will be delivered and what interventions. It's still an awkward conversation, and people need to sit down and have it. That's
very important also for women to think about, because, women who are much older now didn't necessarily have the same kind of career opportunities. And so it's a very important issue for women in particular to think about as they're living longer.
Right. And in some cases, too, people will, if they can't afford to live on their own or in their homes, they'll move in with the kids. So then there's a whole other level of role reversals happening and dynamics changing. And, maybe there are some perks. You get to be with your loved ones, but that's a reality for many people.
As opposed to the kids who've never left home.
Yeah.
They may just never know.
As opposed to the ones who don't want to be on either side of that. And we'll do lots to make sure that doesn't happen sometimes.
Okay, we'll be right back with final thoughts. Stay right there.
It is a welcome indication of the march of progress toward better public health and greater longevity that it is now not at all unusual for people to achieve the age of 100. The United States had only 2 presidents in its history who lived to be 90 until 15 years ago. But since then, Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and George Bush Sr. have all passed that milestone. President Carter, like Henry Kissinger, is very active in their mid-90s, which makes the centennial years the new years of retirement and relaxation for those so minded and so endowed. In general, activity prolongs life, and the compulsion to retire is bad in itself, as demotivating as well as socioeconomically negative. And there is no reason for essentially healthy people not to expect to live for 100 years and enjoy it. Of course, in the end, it is a lottery.
Before we sign off, let's go around the table for some brief final thoughts from the round table. We'll start with you, Dr. Rochelle.
Oh, thank you. I mean, what a great conversation. And I guess something that that stays with me when I'm thinking about final thoughts is that aging isn't something that just is happening. I think aging is something that we all need to take some responsibility for and to actively work at throughout our lives to make sure that we do end up with health and wellness.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of it has to do with taking ownership over you and what you want and preparing everything, preparing the way you want to spend your retirement, preparing even end of life, preparing what you want to leave for your children. But also something really important, I think, is just to have those connections and bonds to leave that legacy that you've always wanted. And one point I wanted to make before we close is this concept of anticipatory events, these ideas of wanting to live a little bit longer just so you can attend your first grandchild's first birthday party or bar mitzvah or communion, whatever it might be, just to have those things to look forward to.
You've worked hard for a very long time. You deserve all the benefits and fun and health of a long, healthy retirement. The time to start planning for it is right now.
I just feel so fortunate to be in a company that's about seniors and about making their lives better. And I really think, being exposed to those good examples is making me think about my future differently. And that's how to surround yourself with a good social network and how to keep active and just all the benefits that make you keep going. I think it's great to have that in your life.
I agree. I think through this process of being here and thinking about life and what it's about, I think it's about it's never too late. So this concept of, when you're 30, oh, I can't do that because I'm 20, or when I'm 40, I can't do that anymore because I'm not 30 anymore. And when you get to 80, we've got some examples that we showed here today. It's never too late. So, get healthy now, eat better now, plan for what you want, because it's not too late.
Okay, you've given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much. I'm Libby Znaimer. We'll see you soon. It's time to zoom out.